Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtapraeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, so we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 18. Uh, 1:18:16. Savai Mahabhagavata Parikshit. Savai Mahabhagavata Parikshit. Yena Pavargakyam Adab. Wait, hold on. Yena Pavargakyam Adabra Buddhi. Go ahead. This one's a tongue twister. Yena Pavargakyam Adabra Buddhi. Jnanena Vayasaki Sabditena. Jnanena Vayasaki Sabditena. Beje Kagendra Dvaja Padamulam. Beje Kagendra Dvaja Padamulam. Kagendra. Beje Kagendra Dvaja Padamulam. Okay, we'll do the synonyms together. Sa he, by certainly, Mahabhagavata, first-class devotee, Parikshit, the king, Yena, by which, Apavarga Akyam, by the name of liberation, Adabra, fixed, Buddhi, intelligence, Jnanena, by knowledge, Vyasaki, the son of Vyasa, Sabditena, vibrated by, Beje, taken to, Kaga Indra, Garuda, the king of the birds. Dwaja, flag. Padamulam, soles of the feet. Wait a minute. Yeah, okay. Thought I was on the wrong verse. O Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. These topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasa, Srila Sukadeva. Purport. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. There is some controversy amongst the students on the path of liberation. Such transcendental students are known as impersonalists and devotees of the Lord. The devotee of the Lord worships the transcendental form of the Lord, whereas the impersonalist meditates upon the glaring effulgence, or the bodily rays of the Lord, known as the Brahmajyoti. Here in this verse, it is said that Maharaj Parikshit attained the lotus feet of the Lord by instructions and knowledge delivered by the son of Vyasadeva, Srila Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami was also an impersonalist in the beginning, as he himself has admitted in the Bhagavatam 219, but later on he was attracted by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord and thus became a devotee. Such devotees with perfect knowledge are called Mahabhagavatas, or first-class devotees. There are three classes of devotees, namely the Prakrita, Majjhima, and Mahabhagavat. The Prakrita, or third-class devotees, are temple worshippers without specific knowledge of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. The Majjhima, or the second-class devotee, knows well the Lord's devotees, the neophytes, and the non-devotees also. But the Mahabhagavata, or the first-class devotee, sees everything in relation with the Lord, and the Lord present in everyone's relation. The Mahabhagavata, therefore, does not make any distinction, particularly between a devotee and non-devotee. Maharaj Parikshit was such a Mahabhagavata devotee because he was initiated by a Mahabhagavata devotee, Shukadeva Goswami. He was equally kind even to the personality of Kali, or what to speak of others. So there are many instances in the transcendental histories of the world of an impersonalist who later became a devotee, but a devotee has never become an impersonalist. This very fact proves that on the transcendental steps, the step occupied by a devotee is higher than the step occupied by an impersonalist. It is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita 12.5 that persons stuck on the impersonal step undergo more sufferings than achievement of reality. Therefore, knowledge imparted by Shukadeva Goswami unto Maharaj Parikshit helped him attain the service of the Lord. And this stage of perfection is called apavarga, or the perfect stage of liberation. Simple knowledge of liberation is material knowledge. Actual freedom from material bondage is called liberation. But attainment of the transcendental service of the Lord is called the perfect stage of liberation. Such a stage is attained by knowledge and renunciation, as we have already explained, Bhagavatam 1.2.12. And perfect knowledge, as delivered by Srila Sukadeva Goswami, results in the attainment of the transcendental service of the Lord. I'll read the verse one more time. O Suta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasa, Srila Shukadeva. Okay, lots of points in this verse. We'll get through whatever we can. So, kind of starting at the bottom of the purport, but Prabhupada says that there's liberation and then there's the perfect stage of liberation. So simple knowledge of liberation is material knowledge. Actual freedom from material bondage is called liberation, but attainment of the transcendental service of the Lord is called the perfect stage of liberation. So we know that in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami explains and describes the 6 characteristics of bhakti. And one of them is the devotees or the characteristic of bhakti in relation to liberation. Does anyone know what that characteristic is? There's 6. And this one says something about liberation. Does anyone know what it is? Let's see who's out there today. Janava, I know Janava probably knows the answer.
Question I missed. Today I'm not very attentively listening.
Hold on, let me mute my audio and say that again if you could.
Today I'm not listening to you attentively. I missed the question.
Okay. There are 6 characteristics of bhakti that Rupa Goswami talks about in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and one of them is connected with the feeling towards liberation. Do you know what that one is?
Mokshalagata Krita.
English.
No interest in liberation. Derived or liberation something.
Yeah, so moksha laguta krit literally means it makes liberation small. Moksha is
Mm.
liberation. Lagu is like small, and krit is to make. So it minimizes the concept of liberation. So the devotee just doesn't care. The devotee doesn't care about liberation. Oh, whoops, what happened to my, that's weird. The devotee doesn't care about that. They only care about, as Prabhupada says, the transcendental service of the Lord. So the devotee's not, they're not specifically aiming for getting away from material suffering. And then there's different kinds of liberation, right? There's, well, they list 5 kinds of liberation for the Vaikuntha planets, but sometimes they only list 4 because one of the types of liberation involves merging with Krishna. And so it's not always considered really a liberation contender, right? So the actual different types of liberation, well, let's ask that question also. Whoops. I don't know why that's doing that. Let's see. Hold on one sec. Um, what are the, let's first name 4 types of liberation minus, let's name the 4 types of liberation um, minus the merging with Krishna. What are the other 4 types?
Alokya, same planet. Sarupya, same bodily features. Um, uh,
Sharshti, is that,
Samipya, Samipya, Srashti something. Yeah, that's it.
yeah, Sharshti is the same opulence, right? And then, what was the last one you said?
Samipya, it's like they can stay together.
Right, the association of the Lord. Okay, so those are the types of liberation that are really considered um, actual liberation of the Vaikuntha planets, but sometimes they throw that 5th one in there that you merge with the Lord. Now, Prabhupada says about the Brahma Jyoti, which is that type of impersonal liberation he's talking about up at the top. They're impersonalists, right? So the impersonalists, they just see the glowing effulgence of Krishna called the Brahma Jyoti, and they believe that's the ultimate form of Krishna, and that's our goal. But there's one thing missing from the Brahma Jyoti that leads to the fall down from the Brahma Jyoti. What is that? What's the one thing that's missing from there?
Service, I think.
Yeah, service. So there's no service to the Lord, Prabhupada says, and so there's no ananda or bliss. So there's sat and chit, but there's not ananda. So Prabhupada says because there's no service, there's no bliss. If there's no bliss, the devotee gets bored. Because there's no service. You're kind of floating around. It's kind of like, sometimes you're let's say it's, we have in Krishna consciousness, we have our festival season where there's so many festivals in a row. And we're just around so many people all the time, and we're doing so much cooking and abhisheks, and there's all sorts of things to be done, and then we just want to break, right? Afterwards, we may want to just say like, okay, I've been around a lot of people for a long time. It's been really busy. I just need to go somewhere peaceful and quiet and just get a break. And at first it feels good, right? You kind of get away a little bit, and then after a while you're like, okay, let's get back into you know, the association of the Vaishnavas and get back to our service. But sometimes you may want that break. So someone who is an impersonalist, they may just feel like this world is such a difficult place and I just need a break and I just want to go somewhere where nothing's happening and it's just peaceful and quiet. And they go there, Brahma Jyoti, and then they get bored and they want to be around people again. And so Prabhupada says when they come back, they usually come back and do philanthropic work. They open up hospitals and things like that. They want to do service. They want to serve. So they dovetail that into serving humanity, typically, Prabhupada says. But he says that, where does he say it here? He says something about, oh yeah, that in the Bhagavad Gita saying that persons stuck on the impersonal step undergo more sufferings than achievement of reality. So there's not much return on investment. That's the point. There's no ROI. What happens, Prabhupada says sometimes he says that all the impersonalists get for their suffering is suffering, right? They go through so many austerities. And as Prabhupada describes in the Bhagavad Gita, also in one purport, that as devotees, we offer our food. Like the impersonalists will try to renounce and say, no, no palatable eatables, right? They don't eat much or nothing that tastes good. And the devotees, they eat very delicious food, but it's been offered to Krishna. And so for the impersonalists, there's a lot of austerities. And in the end, they don't really get much for it. And the devotees, on the other hand, as Krishna describes, they enliven one another in talking about him, and they just, Krishna consciousness is joyfully performed. So the path is the same as the goal, right? So we're along this path. It's not that suffer now, get a little bit of result later. It's just bliss all the way through. And any time that there's not bliss in Krishna consciousness in our practice, it means we're doing something wrong. It's not that the process has any fault. If the process is always blissful, it's just how we engage in the practice that can bring bliss or not. So if we're really connected with bhakti, with service to Krishna and with the service to the Vaishnavas, then there's bliss. So we can know that whenever we are having a difficult time, whenever we're unhappy, whenever we're angry, we have to kind of troubleshoot and see, what have I been doing recently that could have caused this unhappiness? What am I doing? Not that nobody else has any responsibility for the way they behave, but that's between them and Krishna. How somebody else engages in their devotional service, whether or not they're rude to other devotees, whether or not they lie, whether or not they, whatever it is that they do, or they're just kind of condescending, that's between them and Krishna, and they'll have to work that out. But for us, we should always focus on just trying to really develop our own spiritual practice, try to be kind towards the devotees, not commit any offenses. I mean, that's the big one, right? Oftentimes when we're miserable, we've committed an offense. Or we wanted to be the center of something. We wanted things to go our way. And that doesn't mean we become irresponsible in our service. So if we say, let's say our service is, I don't know, I'm just trying to pick, I guess I'm always going to pick the cooking one because I like to cook, but in the kitchen, if there's a standard to be followed in the kitchen, we have to enforce that standard on Krishna's behalf and on Radharani's behalf. And so we may get frustrated if someone doesn't want to follow the standard, and we have to kind of talk to them about it and have a whole thing. We may get a little frustrated. But at least it's on Krishna's behalf. We're saying, okay, this person doesn't want to follow. This is important for the standard of worshiping Krishna properly. Now, there are some people who just don't know, right? Someone may not know the standard. They come in. We're not going to blast them out of the water and just say, like, how dare you come in here? Someone who just brand new or just doesn't know the standard or made a mistake or just forgot. We want to make sure that we're kind and considerate, and we explain to them nicely, oh, Prabhu, there's this standard that we have in the kitchen. And, most of the times people are, oh, I'm very sorry, and they follow it. But sometimes you just get people who just simply don't want to follow. Their consciousness may be disturbed. They want to have things their way. And so we have to say something on Krishna's behalf. But in general, when we are dealing with other Vaishnavas and how we approach Krishna even, we may say something may be very difficult about our service, but it may just be we're not putting our consciousness into it. Maybe we just want our service to be over as quickly as possible because we don't feel like doing it, right? And so we're not going to get that same taste we would get from approaching our service as something that we do for Krishna to make Krishna happy. Because when we please Krishna, we become happy. When we try to be happy, we become unhappy, right? Our goal is not our own happiness. That automatically comes when we make Krishna and the Vaishnavas happy. So we can always troubleshoot in our service to see, was it appropriate? Were the things that I said appropriate? Was it because, along the way, people are going to get upset sometimes. And if we say, for example, let's say someone walks into the temple room with their shoes on and we tell them, oh, I'm sorry, we don't wear shoes in here. And they get really angry. Should we say, well, I don't want them to get angry, so we'll just let people wear their shoes, right? We have to enforce some sort of standard. And so there's going to be people who get angry along the way sometimes, but we have to decide, are they angry because they don't want to follow a particular standard that's non-negotiable? Or are they angry because we said it to them in a rude manner? That we were really rude to them, or we said it at a time when we didn't really need to say it. Are we becoming everyone's authority when we're not their authority? So we want to distinguish between the two. It's Kali Yuga. People have many difficulties in this age with their own mind, right? It's People aren't raised to control their mind. They're raised to satisfy their senses. And so coming to Krishna consciousness and doing the opposite, we start to learn that it's about pleasing Krishna, not ourselves. And there's going to be some natural austerities that come with the practice of Krishna consciousness. Naturally, there's going to be some pushback. Naturally, there's going to be some problems. There's going to maybe be some anger. There's going to be some tears, and some arguments and stuff. So we're just kind of patiently trying to help others to come to that standard and trying to maintain that standard for ourselves, to remember that we're not the center. It's not all for us. It's for Krishna. It's for the Vaishnavas. And in that way, this path of bhakti, which I want to go back to that point, is blissful all the way through. Bhakti itself, whether or not we have our ups and downs, is based on how we approach that path, how we approach the Vaishnavas, how we approach Krishna, how we approach our service. So the path and the goal are the same. And obviously we have to expect that when we are new, we've been conditioned souls for millions of lifetimes, and when we're just beginning the practice. And when I say beginning, I don't just mean like the first year or two. I mean the first several years, right? It's a long time before we get to that stage of purification, of purity. And that's why Rupa Goswami says to be patient and to endeavor with confidence, that we know that this path of bhakti is purifying. We know it is. So just be confident, trust that the process works, and just keep moving along, doing the best that you can to try to avoid offenses, and to try to put your consciousness into all of your service, your kirtan, your japa, everything, to really see it as an offering to Krishna. Even our service to the devotees is an offering to Krishna. Okay, so the impersonalists, they don't have that. They don't have that connection with. They want to be separate from others, right? They want to just go and do their thing alone, and then go in the Brahmajyoti and just kind of float around and not have anything to do. And so they get bored. But we always have engagement. We always have nice, delicious prasadam to honor. And so it's just a blissful path. So this Prabhupada talks about this. This stage of perfection is called apavarga. This is another word for liberation. Does anyone know what this word apavarga literally means? It's very interesting.
No differentiation or something?
Hold on, let me mute, and then if you could say it again.
No differentiation? Seeing everybody equally or something? I don't know. It sounds like that.
Okay, it's something, what it literally means, apavarga means not the paro. It's going to sound weird at first, but there's this in Sanskrit. Sometimes the different sounds, pa, ba, ba, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but there's this row called the pavarga, which means the P row, basically the pa, ba, ba, ma, and each letter stands for a different type of suffering in this world. And so there's like, I can't remember it all. One of them I remember is foaming at the mouth, because you're so overworked and you're thirsty, and there's all these sufferings in this world. And so liberation means not that. It means not the pavarga. So not this foaming at the mouth, not all these other things. Liberation means you get liberated from those types of suffering. So that's what apavarga literally means. It's very interesting word. Sanskrit's very interesting. Just even one simple word can be unpacked into such a large explanation. But that's what apavarga means, literally.
Tell me
So
one more
Prabhupada,
time, please.
sorry, let me mute.
Tell us one more time meaning of apavarga, please.
Okay, so it means not the pa varga, not the p row. Like in Sanskrit, you know how in Sanskrit the consonants and vowels are in rows, right? Where there's the gutturals, the linguals, things like that. And then I can't remember which one this one is. It's been a really long time since I studied Sanskrit, but the pa varga or the p row is pa ba ma. I can't remember. Maybe somebody else knows who studied Sanskrit. But those different letters stand for different types of suffering in this world. So it's saying the pavarga is these different types of suffering, and apavarga means not those kinds of suffering. So it's liberation from those different types of suffering. Okay, so apavarga. So that goes back to Prabhupada saying this perfect stage of liberation. So a person can be, I think we talked about this word the other day, but a person can be liberated while in this world. So what's the word for that? If you're living while liberated. Press mute if anybody knows. I'll give you a few seconds. Does anyone know the Sanskrit for that? Living while liberated. You're in a body still, but you're liberated. Okay, Janva doesn't know. Okay, see thumbs down. Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta means living while liberated. Namkirti, you have something? Got something
Yeah,
for us?
yeah, I was about to say Jivan Mukta.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah.
So living while liberated, it means that really, so I'm sure I said this in class before, but liberation really means liberation from the mind, right? Because it's not really our body that keeps us from being Krishna conscious, it's our mind. So, and the Bhagavad Gita describes that the hierarchy of the senses, the mind, the intelligence, and the soul, right? So the intelligence is above the mind and the soul is above the intelligence. And so the intelligence has to control the mind because um, the mind is like a distracted dog, right? If you take a dog for a walk, it's distracted by everything. Someone walks by, a squirrel goes by, a bird flies into it. The dog is just always looking everywhere. There's a thing. Oh, do I want to go to that thing? Do I want to go to that thing? I don't know. Maybe I'm guessing a lot of you haven't had a dog before, but if you take a dog for a walk, just every single thing they're looking for. So oftentimes you'll see, depending on how well the dog is trained, you'll see the dog walker kind of always trying to pull the dog back. That the dog tries to go running off after something, especially for some reason when something goes by on wheels, dogs go crazy. If someone goes by on a bike or a skateboard, they want to chase after it. So they're out for the walk and there's just every single thing out there distracts them. So the mind is like that. The mind is always looking for what's the next thing I can enjoy? What's the next thing we can do? What's the next thing we can be distracted by? Right? And how can we enjoy? And the intelligence is, no, we're not doing that right now. We're not trying to enjoy. We're trying to serve Krishna. We're trying to serve the Vaishnavas. We're trying to read Bhagavatam right now. Don't worry about who's texting you on WhatsApp. This is what we're doing right now. So you want your intelligence to be wide awake to control the mind. So I say this all the time. I'm going to say it again. Get enough sleep, get enough sleep, get enough sleep. If you get enough sleep, your intelligence is sharp. If your intelligence is sharp, it can control the mind. If you can get the mind on board, then the mind becomes your friend and the mind works with you on trying to be Krishna conscious. So liberation means liberation from the mind and the senses dragging you everywhere. Um, and so we want to work on bringing the mind under control and getting it on board with being Krishna conscious, because we can be in a body, we could be in any building, in any place, on any planet. Not that I want to go to the lower planets, but an advanced devotee doesn't care if they're in the hellish planets, the heavenly planets, the earthly planets. It doesn't matter, because their mind is on board, their intelligence, the soul is connecting directly with Krishna. And so that the time, place, and circumstances really don't matter at all, because the mind is on board. Um, and so while we're still trying to control our mind, our environment does affect us. I mean, we definitely want our environment, obviously, to be in the mode of goodness, right? We want our home to be clean. We want our temple to be clean. We want our room to be clean. We want our body to be clean. We want to keep our mind clean by focusing only on Krishna conscious topics. Um, we want to stay in that mode of goodness environment. Again, being regulated, going to bed early, getting up early. Until we're at that advanced stage, our environment's going to affect us a bit more, the different modes. So we want to, while we're trying to get the mind on board, we want to create an environment that helps support that, right? We don't want to make it more difficult to get our mind on board by being, let's say, trying to chant in a place where there's many distractions, or trying to chant in a place that's unclean, that's just kind of cluttered, right? Because when your environment is cluttered, your mind gets cluttered. So that's why, for example, we have, like in the kitchen, we keep everything organized and clean. In the pujari room, we keep everything organized and clean. The temple room organized and clean. Our environment really affects us. So we want to work towards making sure that those things are um, in place, that they're dealt with, that we especially if you're going to chant, when you're getting ready to chant your rounds, even if your environment is a little bit cluttered, it's nice to just kind of declutter real quick. If there's just some random stuff laying around, it's really nice to just get it organized and just get your space nice and clean. Make sure that there are no distractions. Make sure you can sit somewhere where you're not distracted by something else, a couple of people talking, or someone listening to a class where, because sometimes you could chant and someone's listening to a class in the next room and you're kind of listening to the class. So as nice as it is and as purifying as it is to listen to a class, it's not what you're supposed to do while you're chanting japa. It's one or the other. Either you're listening to class or you're chanting japa. It can't be both at the same time. It's not purifying to have to listen to each thing. That's not purifying, right? The point is to give your full attention to Krishna, whether it's in a class or it's in japa or it's in kirtan. We don't multitask. We just do one or the other. So, because sometimes we may think like, let me get a bunch of credits all at once. Let me listen to Bhagavatam class while I chant my rounds, and then it's like a double credits. But it's actually not. It kind of discredits both, right? You're not doing one or the other very well. And so it's the same thing if you have two friends sitting in the room and you tell both of them to talk at the same time because you want to save time, right? I don't have time to spend with each friend individually, so let me have them both tell me their problems at the same time. And then I'll just, and then I'll get the credit for being there for my friends. And meanwhile, like two people are talking at the same time, you can't understand what they're saying. You can't have a real conversation like that. So picture it the same thing with Krishna. You're either listening to the Bhagavata speaker speak, or you're listening to your japa where you're communicating with Krishna. It's one or the other, right? You can't do both properly. It's an impersonal conception to think you could do both properly. The same way it would look very impersonal to your friends if you're having them both talk at the same time. You're not really listening to either one. Actually, you're kind of half listening. And I don't think anyone would ever agree to that. So we want to be personal with Krishna and say, I'm either going to listen to pastimes about you very clearly and focused, or I'm going to chant my japa and pay attention to hearing your name very clearly and focused. Can you imagine if while Shukadev Goswami was speaking, Raj Parishit pulled out his bead bag It was not Hare Krishna. Imagine if he was doing that while Srikadeva Goswami was speaking. It wouldn't be acceptable, right? So we want to stick with that standard of doing each thing individually, and doing it with full focus and attention. Okay, sorry, it's 8:33. Does anyone have any points or questions or comments? I'll mute myself for a moment, see if anybody has anything.
Thank you, Prabhu, for always giving the reminders about chanting because it's our foundation. uh, like everything centered, uh, like we get the nourishment and everything from the chanting. It keeps us going. Like even for the service, I always felt like if I am too much engaged in service and I am not able to chant my rounds properly, so I will start getting, like distracted more, as you were giving the example of the dog, right? I mean, we will not be able to handle anything, not even the services, not even the relationships, not even, the basic things if the chanting is not good. So, and initially, in my starting days, like when there was not much devotees around us, uh, in 2013 when we started, uh, like Bhakti Vriksha. So no one was um, like chanting much around. So there was no inspiration seeing at the devotees, whoever is chanting even 16 rounds. And I was feeling, oh, there is no change in this person. What is the use of chanting? And after some years, I myself realized that there is no change in us because we are not chanting properly. We say that we are doing our rounds, but once Prabhuji asked me, like, when do you chant? And I said, like, during the day, I chant. Okay, so when we don't even realize and don't reflect, right? So when he asked, so like, how is your chanting? When he asked that, so I said, like, I don't know how it is, but sometime I chant while emptying the dishwasher or emptying the dryer, taking out clothes with one hand and chanting with the other hand. So he started laughing, and so then he told like how we should chant, like focus, as you said, focus. And then I can see the difference, like what is the difference. um, so it's summum bonum, like everything. Chanting is everything basically. So thank you so much for the reminder, Prabhu.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's true. It's the if we're not trying to be attentive, it's namaparad, which means Krishna remains hidden. If we're trying to be attentive, if we're doing our best to bring the mind back when it wanders, then it's namabhasa, which means Krishna starts to reveal himself. So it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that one can chant for millions of births and not get love of Godhead, right? If they're infested with the 10 offenses. So one of the offenses is inattentive chanting, or not trying to be attentive. I should make that clear, because until we're on Shuddhanam stage, the pure chanting, it is going to be inattentive, but the success in that is that you recognize it and you bring your mind back whenever it wanders. Um, and so then Krishna starts to reveal himself if he sees that effort. But yeah, it's like you said, pulling clothes out of the dryer. It's impossible to just give Krishna your full attention. So that's why we want to make sure we have our little place, our time. We're not doing anything else. We're just really trying to hear the holy name. Otherwise, it's just autopilot. You're just, looking at other things, doing other things, and it's just nam nam shishin shin sham nam shishin. It's just kind of like just to get them done, just doing them to get them done, not to actually pay attention to Krishna. Okay, anyone else have any points, comments, questions? Okay, if not, thank you all for joining today and contributing. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a nice, happy, Krishna conscious rest of your day.
Right.